Hi, this is Sherry. This is a flip through of an item that I hope to ultimately put in a larger journal, junk journal of some sort. But it's one item that I use to just capture some information and notes about a book that we recently read in book club. The name of the book is called The Splendid and the Vile, and it's by Eric Larson, and it is about Churchill's first year as prime minister during the Blitz, which was the 57 straight days of bombing by the Germans. It was a very interesting book. And one of the things I did is I would jump online and Google certain topics just to learn a little bit more about it. So, one of the things that they talk about is this concept of a ration book and how the government would issue these books and determine what the price was for certain items and how much anyone could purchase. So I made a few printouts of some of these actual books that I just printed on regular copy paper and cut those out and distressed them and things like that and used them through this project. So this is nothing more than an envelope. It's it's an envelope, like the junk mail envelope that we get tons of, and it has a little window in it. So I folded it in half, and then I essentially just decorated the envelope using materials that I have left over from old scrapbooking projects. So and I created two pockets on both sides, just cut those ends off and did a little circular cut here to make it easy. And put items in each of the pockets. So I mentioned the ration book. I used scraps of lettuce and a few other things just to decorate. And this ticking is from a mattress that I stripped and bleached, even though you can still see the colors, but it's very vintage, old fabric. So in the first pocket, I created two tags, and the tags, I'll just give you a little insight into the kinds of things that I use. So these are from cardstock, just from a FedEx envelope, and I have tons of this. Everyone has tons of this, so I just save things like that, put it in a box, and I cut two little tags, and I copied them first with. I have a lot of old almost like school lined paper, but it's got a very natural vintage look to it because it's old. And so I always cover it with that vintage paper and then other items on top of that. So these are some of those pictures that I printed that were pages out of one of these ration books. This one was rationing tea. This was rationing fuel. And on the inside of the, let me tell you what's on the back. So on the back of this one, I just put a bunch of notes that I took for myself as I was reading the book. And when we discuss it, whenever we do do book club, I would just refer to these notes to remember, what I thought were important points about the book. And then this, I decided to go ahead and just kind of summarize why I like doing these kinds of crafts so much. And I kind of jokingly, but not really joking, I think it is very much, for my own personal mental health. And I like doing it. And there's concrete reasons as to, why things like this are good. Essentially, I ran across this article that talks about how the process of cultivating memories and leveraging nostalgia, it actually encourages your brain to release endorphins and reduce stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. So there's actually some science behind it. Anyway, this is the back to the envelope. I created a little tuck spot, which was the closing seal on the envelope, and I copied portions of the ration book that I thought were particularly interesting. For instance, in this particular book, it talks about how when you get the book, if you actually have sugar, you use the first stamps that you can use are for sugar. And if you have any already in your pantry, then you have to tear out those stamps so that you don't get any more than anyone else would have just because you might already have some. I thought that was kind of interesting. It also went on to say that when you're finished, with your rations, to salvage the tin cans and the waste fats and turn those back in. In the book club that we did, the person who led the discussion, she brought all of us a Winston Churchill cigar that was wrapped in this tissue paper, and I thought that was hilarious. The cigars were chocolate, so that was fun. This is just another one of the pages from that ration book, and calls out specifically how this is all administered by the Office of Price Administration. Now, this book is nonfiction, and a lot of the insight that it provides is from journals and letters that individual citizens had written. Well, it just so happens that I have a box of letters that were given to me by someone local, and it just so happens that all these letters took place in that 1942 to 1947 timeframe. And I've organized these letters. There's a probably about 200 or 300 of them, and I organized them based on who the conversation was with and the time and in chronological order. And then I went to the general time frame for dates of certain activities that were happening. And I just looked at those letters to see what kind of insight I might be able to glean. And it was just shocking to me. So one of the people that my friend here had corresponded with lived in London, and I put 2 of the letters in here, and I'm not going to read them, but I will point out they're all on this really super thin tissue paper. They're all dated. The penmanship is just immaculate, and this one in particular is talking about I believe this one, she literally talks about Churchill. So she makes reference to, what do you think of Churchill going to Athens? He must have great courage. And then she goes on to say, let me see if I can get this close enough to read. The Germans have dented our line in Belgium, but don't worry, the Russians are progressing, and if we aren't, and very soon the Americans and all other armed forces concerned will soon have the advances checked and will go forward again. The Germans will never be able to break our spirit, nor the faith we have in our soldiers, no matter how hard they try. And I thought that was that particular paragraph was interesting, and it reminds me so much of what we are seeing happen today in the Ukraine. And the rest of the letter is actually very interesting as well. This one has similar insight, and these were just a couple. This one has similar insight in that it talks very specifically about the bombing and the fact that they stay in these shelters at night. And she talks about recently it has been pretty rough going here, and we have been blasted many times of late. My friend's house is now one mass of rubble, and she, with the 4 others in her family, were blown various distances from their beds, their little night clothes being completely blasted to ribbons. The whole family are now in the hospital in pretty sad state. One doesn't realize, she numbers each of the pages, so this was actually 2. One doesn't realize how terrible it really all is until it is brought home to us individually, and also realize how fortunate you have been yourself. Although we sleep indoors upstairs, these so-and-so things are still coming when the weather is warmer, we will likely go back to the shelter. And it goes on. It talks more. It talks very specifically about what they were able to pull together for their Christmas dinner, and how minimal it all was, but how grateful they were for the items that they were able to get. And this person who she corresponded with these letters, at one point a little later, she actually included her picture, and I thought that was very interesting, and just made the whole thing so authentic. I mean, you can see her curled hair, her slightly crooked teeth, which is so characteristic, of the UK. So I just have all of that stuck in this particular side of the envelope. And if you, see, I keep her picture kind of comes through the little window there. But this is, that's just an example.